All right, we are going to start with the quadratic formula today. So many of you have actually already attempted the quadratic formula, and I don't really know if you knew exactly what you were doing when you were doing this, but we're going to do the quadratic formula today, and I'll explain some different things that we've already learned that are present in this formula. With these notes, I'm not going to do all the problems. I'm going to save some of them for our time in class. And hopefully I can explain some other things there while we're doing this. So with this, I'm going to use some highlighters, obviously a pencil. I have my calculator with me, and I'm going to use some scratch paper too because I'm going to need some more room. So if you want to pause this and get all that kind of stuff before we start, I would suggest you do that if you like to use the things that I use. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and start this. So with the quadratic formula, it's going to be x equals, and it's negative b, or the opposite of whatever b is, plus or minus the square root of, and it's the entire thing, b squared minus 4ac, and then it's all divided by 2 times a. So hopefully you recognize this b squared minus 4ac, and that's the discriminant that we've already been talking about. And that discriminant, again, tells you how many solutions there are. So there's going to be either 0, 1, or 2 solutions. And remember, your solutions are either your zeros is what we call them, your x-intercept is what we call them, or obviously the solutions. And it's where the quadratic or the parabola meet the x-axis. So again, if I was going to go over here just a little bit, your solutions again, so if this is my x-axis, and let's just say it's right here, this right there is a solution. Okay, so this is all going to be in the quadratic formula. So we learned some things before we actually get to the formula. All right, so we have some steps. Okay. And it's going to make sure that the equation is set to equal to 0, so we've done that plenty of times. And then we're going to identify a, b, and c because they're all in this formula, and then we're going to substitute the values and then simplify. Simplify is going to be the most important part of this, and so I want to make sure that we really make sure that we're simplifying correctly and not incorrectly, obviously, because this is going to mess up your entire problem. So in our example, it's already set equal to 0, so that's fine there. I'm going to label our a. So our a is going to be in front of our x squared term, which is just 1. B is going to be whatever is going to be in front of our x, and make sure you take the sign, so it's negative 5. And then c is going to be, take the sign, and it's going to be negative 36. Let me put the c over here. C equals negative 36. All right, so you will be writing this equation so many times that you should just memorize it after the first couple times. So x equals, so negative b are my opposite of b, so it helps if you kind of write these out. So the opposite of negative 5 is 5, so 5 plus or minus, and this is their square root, so make a big square root sign. And then b squared, so negative 5 squared in parentheses, negative 5 squared minus 4, parenthesis a, which is 1, c, which is negative 36. Again, make sure this entire thing gets under that square root. And that's all going to be divided, even the very first number here, by 2, and your a is 1. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and simplify. So when I simplify, you're going to simplify this negative 5 squared first. So it's going to be 5 plus, in parentheses, or in the square root, negative 5 squared is 25. Okay, so I just did that part. And then you're going to do the rest of this. So negative 4 times 1 times negative 36 is going to give you plus 144. And there you can do this on the calculator right there. So if you were to put this in the calculator, you're going to hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. You're going to just go ahead and do -4, so -4, and then times 1, parenthesis 1, parenthesis -36, and it's going to come out to that. Make sure you just enter the parenthesis, and then you guys should be good to do the calculator version of that. Okay, so you just want to make sure that you show those two things simplified. All right, so when I ask you to show work, this is what I want you to do. So you can use the calculator, just make sure you show these two numbers right there, and you're going to divide by 2 times 1, which is 2. Make sure everything gets divided by 2. All right, equals. So now we're going to just simplify 25 plus 144. So x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of, and now it's 25 plus 144, which is 169. Everything divided by 2. Okay, so this is where our two answers come into play. So we have x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of 169 is 13, and it's all divided by 2. So this is just order of operations here. This is our two answers. So answer 1 is going to be 5 plus 13 divided by 2, and answer 2 is going to be 5 minus 13 divided by 2. All right, so in your calculator, if you do 5 plus 13, which is going to be 18 divided by 2, gives you 9. So this is equal to 9. And then 5 minus 13 divided by 2 gives you -4. All right, so then in your braces, sorry, let me move this over just really quickly. Sorry about that. Cut you guys off right there. So in your braces, you're going to have -4, comma 9 in your braces. Okay, there you go. Those are terrible braces, but you get what I'm saying. All right, so then our zeros, our x-intercepts, our solutions to this quadratic equation is going to be -4 and 9. So if I were going to make a parabola, which is your shape of your graph, because my equation is positive, it's going to be positive here, so it's going to look something like this. Okay, and this is going to be at -4, and this is going to be at +9. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. Hopefully you can see that. All right, I'm going to do a couple more that look like this, that are, I don't want to say easy, but they kind of come out to nicer numbers here. All right, let's try number 1 here. Okay, number 1. I'm going to explain some other things with this one. And we have the gist of what we're doing here. So again, x squared plus minus 8x equals 20. So the very first thing I want to do is make sure that this is equal to 0. So I need to get this 20, or the positive 20, to the right side, to the left side of my equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 20 here. I'm going to subtract 20 here. So that means that it's going to be x squared minus 8x minus 20 equals 0. So now I'm ready to go. So my a is going to equal 1, b is going to be -8, and c is going to be -20. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and put this in my formula. So x equals -b, or the opposite of what my b is going to be +8, plus or minus the square root of, this is going to take me a little bit of space, I write a little bit larger. Okay, this is what I mean by showing work. I need all this shown in here. So now it's going to be b squared. So it's going to be -8 squared, -8 squared minus 4 a c, all divided by 2 times 1. Okay, all of it divided by, so make sure you have that divided by sign or your fraction bar all the way over. All right, so now we are going to go ahead and simplify. So remember when I said we're going to simplify this, and then we're going to simplify this. Okay. So I get x equals 8 plus or minus negative 8 squared is going to be 64. And then negative 4 times 1 times negative 20. If you're in your calculator, you should get 80. So plus 80. All divided by 2. Okay, so now here we are to the solution. So I'm going to do one thing on my, I'll just do it over here. I'm just going to use my discriminant. Okay, my discriminant is going to be this b squared minus 4ac, which is going to be whatever is inside here to give me my number of solutions. Okay, so I have negative 8 squared, sorry, b squared minus 4ac. So it's going to be negative 8, which we already learned, which is 64, plus 80, which is going to be 144. Okay, so if you are just on your discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, that's 144. So it should tell you that there's going to be 2 solutions here. Okay, so 2 solutions. All right, so I have x plus or minus square root of 144. Oh, sorry. 8. X equals 8 plus or minus the square root of 144, all divided by 2. Okie dokie. So then we should get x equals 8 plus or minus 12 divided by 2. So our first one is going to be 8 plus 12 divided by 2. And our second one is going to be 8 minus 12 divided by 2. Okay, so 8 plus 12 divided by 2 is going to give us 10. And then 8 minus 12 divided by 2 is going to give us negative 2. Alright, so in our little braces, we are going to do negative 2, 10. Okay, so again, this is my answer up here, and this is my answer here. Alright. Alright, I'm going to do number 2, and I'm going to do number 3 on this page right here, because they're going to give me some different answers, different types of answers. So I'm going to use a different piece of paper only because I marked on number 2 and number 3 a little bit. So let me just write this down really quick. So I have number 2 is 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 equals 12. Okay, let's get this out of the way. I'm going to use this. All right, so again, I have x equals, I'm just going to write my formula down really quick. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Again, you should be memorizing this. All right, so I need to get it equal to 0. So that means I have to subtract 12, subtract 12. All right, so I have 2x squared plus 7x. And I have 3 minus 12 gives you minus 9 equals 0. Okay, so I have a that's equal to 2. I have a b that's equal to 7. And I have a c that's equal to negative 9. Let me zoom out just a little bit for you guys. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Let's see this okay, hopefully. Okay. Enter this into my equation. So I have x equals negative b. So my negative 7 is over here. X equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 a c. Okay, divided by 2 times a. 2 times 2. Let's simplify this. So x equals negative 7 plus or minus. Same thing, I'm going to do this over here. 7 squared. So the square root of 7 squared is 49. Negative 4 times 2 times, negative 4 times a times c is going to give us plus 72. And this is all going to be divided by 2 times 2, which is 4. Alright. Roll with me, roll with me. Okay, simplify a little bit further. X equals negative 7 plus or minus, and 49 plus 72 is going to give me the square root of 121, all divided by 4. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make, just going to simplify this a little bit further and then make our two equations. So it's going to be x equals negative 7 plus or minus, and the square root of 121 is 11 divided by 4. Alright, here's where our two equations are coming in. Equals, this is 1, negative 7 plus 11 divided by 4. And then our second one is going to be negative 7 minus 11 divided by 4. Okay. So if I do this, negative 7 plus 11 is going to give you 4. Divided by 4, which is now 1. Okay, here's one solution. Negative 7. Negative 7 minus 11 is going to give us a smaller negative, so negative 18 divided by 4 equals, now negative 18 divided by 4, it can be reduced. So even if you don't know this one right now, and you look in your calculator and you say negative 18 divided by 4 equals, and you get this. I want you to turn this into a fraction. So hit your math, and then number 1, it says so fraction, enter, enter. So it gives you negative 9 over 2. Just leave it like this. Okay, leave it as your improper fraction. So your answer to this is going to be, in your braces, negative 9 over 2, comma, 1 braces. Okay, so there you go. Here is our answer. So for me, it's really helpful to put all this out on paper. So if you see how much paper this actually took me, it took me almost a full page to do one problem, only because it takes me a little bit, I like to write bigger, but it's really, really nice to have this extra space so you can see exactly what you're doing. And it's nice for me so I can see what you're doing, so I can help you fix your mistake if you are making one. So for right now, until you are expert level at your quadratic formula, I need you to write this out kind of like this. Okay, so it kind of goes in a sequential order. So if you notice, I kind of made everything the way it was supposed to be. The equation, I labeled everything. I put my formula up here. I figured out what I'm doing, and I'm working downwards. So you are working downwards. Okay. Here, you should notice that this is your discriminant, which is right here. So 121, that's your discriminant. So 121 over 1, so that means it's going to be 2 zeros. Okay, 2 zeros. And then I kind of break it off here into my two equations. So I need you to be organized when you're doing this. If it's not organized, I can't tell what you're doing. I'm going to send it back to you, the homework. Send it back to you. Okay. So what we are going to do is we're going to go to number, we'll do number 3 right now. All right, so I'm going to flip the page, do number 3. Okay, x squared minus 12 equals 0. Alright, so right now it's set equal to 0, but if you notice that there's something missing, and you should notice that there's a b term that's missing. So a is going to equal to 3. B is just missing, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means it's 0. And then C is going to give me negative 12. Go ahead and put this into your formula. And again, your formula is, I want you to write this 1,010 times so you get it. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Okay, you're going to need to know that one. Alright, x equals negative b. So the opposite of 0 is just going to be 0. So I'm going to put 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 12, all divided by 2 times a, or 2 times 3. Okay? Let's go ahead and simplify. X equals 0 plus or minus 0 squared, which is just 0, and then minus 4 times AC, negative 4 AC, let's see, is going to be square root of 0, and then negative 4 times 3 times negative 12 is going to give us plus 144. Okay, all divided by 6. Alright, x equals, so I have 0 plus or minus, and it's going to be, so because this is 0, I'm just going to kind of take it away. Plus or minus, it's going to stay plus or minus 0 plus 144, the square root of 144 divided by 6. Okay, so here's where we kind of separate this off into. So it's going to be the square root of 144 is 12, so it's going to be x. So plus or minus 12 divided by 6. Okay, 12 divided by 6 is 2, so it's going to give you, so it just kind of equals out. There's nothing to add or subtract here to this, so it's going to be, my answer is going to be plus or minus 2. Okay, that's it, plus or minus 2. Alright, let's see, 4, 5, and 6 are so much like that, so I'm going to skip forward, and let's do number 7, and then we can be done with this part, and then I will actually do some of the irrational ones tomorrow with you, because those ones are a little bit more difficult. Alright, so 7 is x squared plus 7x equals x minus 10. Alright, see this alright? Again, I need an equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract an x. Sorry, minus x, I'm going to add a 10. Alright, so I'm going to subtract an x, I'm going to add a 10 over in this other sign. So I'm going to get x squared plus 6x plus 10 equals 0. Set to go. My a is going to be 1, my b is going to be 6, and my c is going to give me 10. My equation, x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. rewrite. All right, go ahead and let's fill it in. So x equals, the opposite of my b is going to be negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So my b is 6, so 6 squared minus 4. A is 1. C is 10. All over 2 times A, which is 1. Perfect. All right, simplify. X equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of, pencils, 6 squared, 36. 36. Okay, negative 4 times 1 times 10. Negative 4 times 1 times 10 is going to give us 40. Minus 40 minus 40. So negative 4 times 1 is going to be negative 4. Negative 4 times 10 is going to be negative 40. Okay, so this is why this negative 40 is right there. So minus 40. All right, all divided by 2. 36 minus 40. So x equals negative 6 plus or minus 36 minus 40 is actually negative 4, all divided by 2. Okay, so if you remember anything about what I told you about negatives underneath the square root, is it's impossible. You can't do that. Okay, so it's an imaginary number, and later you're going to deal with these, but in Algebra 1 you're not going to deal with these right now. So all we're going to do here is we're going to put that it's 0. It doesn't exist. Okay, it can't happen right now. It's imaginary. So I'm going to leave it with that, and this is going to be your answer for right now. Okay, so just know that you can get fractions for these ones, and you can get nice whole numbers, you can get one number, you can get two numbers, you can get 0 numbers. Okay, so 0 is a solution. So if you remember your discriminant, 36 minus 40 is negative 4, and if we talked about our discriminant before, you would have known that there is zero solutions, no solutions right there. So it means it doesn't cross your x-axis. Okay, and our irrational solutions we'll do in class for tomorrow's, just so I can explain them. But just know you can get irrational solutions too. And that is going to be it. I will post this after class and your homework, and that's it. And this also can be used with your CSI homework too. So this is now what you can use. Hopefully that all makes sense to you, and if not, please ask me questions during class time tomorrow. See you guys later.